Hello again everyone and welcome back to Skyblock News. Today we're going to be covering patch point 20.6 and a bunch of new information about future updates coming to Hypixel Skyblock. Before we begin, I just want to say we are on our way to 75k, so if you could leave a like and subscribe down below, that really would mean a ton. Without any further ado though, let's launch right into this. Starting off, they begin this thread with a bit of a TLDR, and it includes stuff like the Crystal Nucleus RNG meter, a revamped Heart of the Mountain, forge slots, pure ores, a mining balance overhaul, die drop chance changes, various quality of life changes, and a bunch of bug fixes. But the big ticket items that we want to talk about today first include the Crystal Nucleus RNG meter. Every run you do grants you 1,000 total progress towards getting whatever drop you want. As you can see, a Devon's Alloy costs 1 million total progress, so you need to do 1,000 runs. You will also retroactively get Nucleus XP for runs that you've completed at a 25% rate, so 250 XP per run you've previously done. It's also no longer a drop chance that's dynamic, the Devon's Alloy. It's now going to be around 1 in 1,000, but with some buffs that you can get at things like, I believe, the Diamond or Gold Essence shops. I think you can get this as high as like 1 in 890. There are other benefits you can do as well to make this a little bit more common. Basically, Devon's Alloy will not be as rare as it was previously. They've also revamped and made a lot of big improvements to the Heart of the Mountain. There's a warning when you mine with unspent tokens. They've disabled the ability for you to see pretty much the tokens that are disabled, so now they'll appear as, little redstone instead of just appearing as the emeralds like they were previously. And you can no longer switch to a different pickaxe ability while you have one that's currently active or on cooldown. This one's a little bit interesting. They've also buffed quite a few of these abilities. Pretty much everything with the Heart of the Mountain is changed. It's entirely overhauled. I'm going to have to make a separate video about that in a few days once a meta comes around, so keep in mind that if you're wondering, what should I set up for my Heart of the Mountain? It's going to take a few days for people who know more than me or know more than you to hop in, test, see what they're going to do, and then there will be guides out hopefully within the next week. A pretty big change are 4 new mining fortune variants, which, keep in mind, they stack on top of your base mining fortune. These are ores, blocks, dwarven metals, and gemstones, all related to fortune. For ore fortune, it's pretty much any ore that you can imagine. For block fortune, it's stuff like cobblestone, endstoned, netherrack, mycelium, red sand, stuff like that. The dwarven metals include things like mithril, titanium, umber, tungsten, and glaciite, and gemstones are gemstones. If you get yourself, for example, a bunch of block fortune, how it works is if you're mining, let's just say, mycelium, it'll take all of your mining fortune and then all of your block fortune, and it will give you the amount of mycelium that correlates to those numbers. You can also see what a fortunes apply to what in the newly revamped handy block guide. You can also do /HBG, which is pretty cool. I think that generally these changes are nice. It's going to be great to get a lot of these materials in the block fortune category way easier. Next up, we have a few other new stats: mining spread, gemstone spread, and heat resistance. Mining spread is your chance to break an additional block when mining. Stacks above 100, similar to fortune. So if you have 350, you're going to be guaranteed to mine 3 additional blocks and have a 50% chance to mine a 4th. It's compatible with ores, blocks, and dwarven metals. Gemstones weren't included, and that's because they have their own stat, gemstone spread. Basically, it's compatible with pristine, making it pretty powerful. Keep in mind, though, I believe that gemstone rates are quite a bit down compared to how they were before this update. I don't know if that's a long-term thing that they want to do, or if that's just because they need to add some more stuff maybe in a week or two. We'll have to wait and see on that. There's also heat resistance. You can kind of also see that heat builds up a little bit differently than it did before. Keep in mind, though, that with something like the Bell Pet, this is so negligible. You can also use a bunch of armor, and there's a bunch of ways to get tons of heat resistance. This is not as bad as it looks, trust me. You may say, like, oh, well, on fire you gain +1 heat per second. You're like, that's terrible. It's not going to be bad, I promise. Generally, it's going to work the exact same way as cold resistance, but there's just a lot more ways to get it.
Hey guys, Jade here. Don't forget to use code RAIL in the Hypixel store for 5% off your order. It means the world to us and it helps more than y'all know. Bye!
Next up, we have pure ores. These basically give you a larger quantity of the base ores than you would expect on, let's just say, like the gold mine, for example. If you find like pure gold, it's going to be a little bit better. They've also added a bunch of little build changes all over the Dwarven Mines. Notably, the Royal Mines now has a large quantity of these pure ores. It's going to be great for Ironman players going for early game collections. It's going to be great for mid-game players who want to make quite a bit of money. I think the values on this were pretty solid, all things considered. People were making upwards of 10, 15, 20 mil an hour. I think this is going to be pretty nice as an early to mid-game money-making method. And there's going to be a lot of those in this update. There's going to be a lot of money-making methods that you're going to be able to utilize. Hopefully over the next week or two, I'll get some videos out there. We'll see about that. There are also a bunch of new items. I think the biggest ones that I want to go over are the Precursor Apparatus, which you can craft using all 6 of the Automaton parts. You can instantly complete the Sapphire Crystal quest with this item. The Haste Artifact is also a new thing. Basically, it's just a haste ring and 256 enchanted cobble. It gives you additional mining speed and a higher level of haste. It's also an artifact, so go get it. There's the Royal Compass, which is a new thing. It points towards the nearest emissary or the king. You can get Dwarven Treasure. The Flow State enchantment is new. It's actually really, really strong. You can get yourself 600 mining speed just based on the consecutive blocks that you break. It's also really easy to get this. Like, I was on the server maybe 10 minutes, did one event, got myself a Flow State. It's really easy to get your hands on for both regular and Iron Man players. Incredibly powerful. I think you should get it. A lot of the other things here are some new lava rods, some new topaz rods, rusty titanium pickaxe. It's the new first tier. A few equipment reforges, a bunch of the Dwarven O's, which are new various consumable items. You can get those through, for example, doing a Crystal Nucleus run, or you can get them through Dwarven events, stuff like that. Basically, there's just a bunch of new mining quality of life items and improvements here. You can read through this list if you want to. There's nothing too crazy here. Just make sure you get yourselves a bunch of these Dwarven O's, all the different subtypes. They do give you Skyblock XP. There is also a huge list of miscellaneous changes. Now, I've gone over pretty much every single one of these changes in previous videos, but the big highlights here are a bunch of improvements related to forges. As you can see, all drills now only take 30 seconds to forge, except for the first one in their line. Each piece of Armor of Devon, for example, now is 24 hours flat instead of 23. They added a bunch of new items as fuel. For example, the fossils are 50k fuel each, which is pretty cool. There's also just a bunch of other mining-related improvements and changes. Magma cores are going to be more common. Glaciite armor is way more common from Glaciite walkers, which is really good. They've reduced Bal's respawn timer to 1 minute. They've made it so a lot of the corpses give you way more Glaciite powder. All of these changes are really nice. I really like all of them, except if I had to sit here and read them all to you, we'd be here for a half hour, so I'm going to let you guys look at that if you want to. TLDR, mining is better. There were also balancing updates made to pretty much every single part of mining. I think the biggest thing that people were worried about at first was the Gemstone Gauntlet, but I've got to say that the Gemstone Gauntlet is still incredibly solid. You get yourselves a certain amount of gemstones whenever you kill a mob, as long as you have gemstones in the gauntlet, and it can get pretty powerful. Keep in mind also that Lonesome Miner, the perk that gives you a bunch of combat stats on mining islands, now works in the Dwarven Mines. So you can utilize this in tandem with the Gemstone Gauntlet to kill ghosts and make a ton of money per hour. I showed this off the other day. You're going to be making a lot of money if you end up doing that, and it's going to be just way easier to farm ghosts in general, even without the Gauntlet, because of Lonesome Miner. So this is going to be very, very strong. As you can see, the damage is now plus 300. It also gives you 50 strength. It's going to be a good weapon. They also made some requirement changes. As you can see, the biggest one is that Crystal Hollows now requires Heart of the Mountain 4 instead of Heart of the Mountain 3. A bunch of other things have been changed around here, but nothing too crazy, all things considered, except maybe the Pick a Nimbus requiring Heart of the Mountain 4. But other than that, most changes here make a lot of sense. They did a bunch of recipe balancing here. Biggest change I can think of is that they've made the 655 a little bit more expensive, but they've also made the other parts of the drill way cheaper, notably the 555 way cheaper in comparison to how it was. As you can see, just not nearly as many materials required to make. Nothing here looks too crazy. You do need quite a bit of plasma, but once again, because it's easier to farm ghosts, I imagine this won't be that bad. Then we have things like mining pet reworks, armor balancing, tool balancing, and you can just see so many changes here. Lots of general improvements. For example, a lot of the drill engines give you more mining speed. You're going to be getting better pickaxe ability cooldown reductions. You're going to be getting yourself pristine from things like the Jasper drill. It's going to be alright. Especially the Spicy Goblin Omelet got a major improvement, as you can see here. You earn plus 20% more powder of all types when mining. I really like this item. Also, for those earlier who were worried about things like heat, you can use heat armor to grant yourself full heat immunity, so don't worry too much about that. Mineral and glossy mineral armor are still really good, by the way. They grant you mining spread on ores and blocks. Do keep in mind, though, that because of some of the changes related to gemstones, it may be a little bit harder to get yourself glossy gemstones. I do hope the admins take a look at that, maybe reduce the total drop, rates a little bit. Drop them from 1 in 725 to maybe 1 in 325. When I say drop, I really mean improve, but that's just the wording error there. I think that they generally need to make glossy gemstones a lot more common, and this kind of goes into that. The passive now grants you 150 mining spread on ores and blocks. It's really nice if you want to be mining long term, especially for things like hardstone, so I'm pretty happy about this change specifically, although I do wish that glossy gemstones were more common. They've also made a bunch of changes to pets, as you can see. Nothing too crazy. I think the biggest thing that people were upset about was Bal, but Bal was never supposed to be a super endgame pet, and it was really, really strong. They didn't want it to be, so they've nerfed it quite a bit in comparison to how it was previously. Skaitha's a little bit different. I think Skaitha's actually just as good, if not a little better now. Mithril Golem's pretty good. Mole's great. I like the new Armadillo. Armadillo's really strong now, actually, on Hardstone. As you can see, it now has long claws, which grants you 500 mining spread, I believe, at max level on Hardstone. It's super nice. I loved playing around with it today. Snail also works a little bit differently. Now it scales with rarity, and they've just made a bunch of improvements in general to pretty much all the pets, so that's pretty nice. Lastly, in terms of the balancing section, we have a lot of mining tool reforges. Basically, all of them have been buffed across the board. There have been some minor nerfs, but nothing too crazy. You can read through all of this in the original alpha playtest thread. There's just so much stuff listed. Even going over this in a shortened manner is still going to make this video like a 10-15 minute video, so yeah. Next, we have a bunch of dye changes. I once again also covered this. TLDR here is that they've made a lot of the dyes way more common. I mean, look at Pelt Dye. Pelt Dye, elusive animals. It went from 1 in 250k down to 1 in 10k. The only ones that were made more rare, I believe, were Nadeshiko, as you can see here. At Metaphysical, it went from 1 in 10k to 1 in 25. And I believe one other dye was made a little bit more rare. And that is the Holly dye. Yes, it is twice as rare. Pretty much everything else has been buffed pretty significantly. They're also going to take a look at chocolate dye eventually, and we'll get into that later, but they do have plans for some future updates that I do want to discuss as well. They've also made some other general changes, notably to dungeons. Icefill now rewards 2 blessings, it was 1. Icefill now spawns only on floor 7. They've basically sped up a little bit of the animations here. They've made it so things just work a little bit more logically. I like this stuff. Lastly, we have miscellaneous changes. Once again, so many things to talk about here. You can use get from sacks without specifying, and now it'll only pull out 1 item instead of a bunch. EXP share now automatically disables once a pet reaches level 100. You get a flat +5 farming fortune for each pest turned into Phillip instead of it being a scalable thing. There's a private island bestiary for bats. Just tons and tons of improvements here. Lastly, we're down to a section that I think a lot of people are going to be pretty excited about, and that is the admin's future plans when it comes to updates and things like that. They're pleased with the progress of the Chocolate Factory, and they have a few small updates on the way. I think they call these small updates, but they're actually really huge. Basically, you can get seasonal automatic egg collection, guaranteed methods to acquire the rarest rabbits, and more. I think that's the biggest problems people have had with this update. Divine rabbits, special rabbits, stuff like that. I know there's no special rabbits, but maybe we'll get special rabbits at this point. If there were a way to get them in a guaranteed manner, I think people would be way more okay with them. So I am super pleased hearing this information. Just kind of sad it took so long. There's going to be a museum progression revamp. TLDR here is basically, instead of giving you Skyblock XP based on the total number of items, you'll now get XP based on items' individual value, so late game items will give you more XP. The total XP may be slightly reduced at launch. This change will allow for greater XP growth in the long term. Makes me think that they're going to be adding a lot of items with foraging. Also, you can expect enhanced museum rewards alongside this update. Very, very nice. They're also working on another update for pests, the Pest Hunter's Wares update. It's a minor garden update that will add some more farming content to the game, mostly pest related. I personally really like them. I like pests. I think they're pretty cool, especially for early game Iron Man, stuff like that. So if they make farming a little bit better in that regard, maybe lower some of the crop milestones, make them more in line with something like wheat, I will be very happy. Finally, we have foraging. They've made excellent progress on it, like they've already stated. New hunting skill is nearing completion. They're not ready to put the features on the latest Minecraft version. The foraging update, though, is nearly polished. They're waiting for the right tech to catch up. So that's pretty good news as well. Foraging is pretty much done. They're just waiting for the tech to catch up. We've kind of already known this, as mentioned in the dev blog. Hopefully we could have seen like an image or two here, maybe a teaser or something, but that seems like the future of Skyblock, and I think it looks pretty good. Overall, this is an absurdly massive update. I've previously talked about this in like 6 or 7 videos. It's a good one, I think. It's a great update. Has a lot of big improvements to something like mining. Myself, I previously didn't do like any mining at all. You can look at my powder rates and it was terrible. I'm really excited to get in there and actually start mining because of this update. Things just feel a lot better. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below, whether that be on things related to this update, on things outside of this update, maybe looking at the future. What do you think? At the end of the day though, my name's Derailious. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.